As Reverend James mentioned last week, the title of my talk for my ministerial panel was First World Problems. And though he said I would give the same talk today, I'm not the same Karen today. The world is not the same today. So I'll incorporate some of those elements, but I think it's really important. I would be remiss to start my first ministerial duty without at least acknowledging the shooting in Orlando last night. So last night, if you don't know, there was a mass shooting in an LGBT club in Orlando. And as we're celebrating Pride Month across the country, specifically in LA, here today, there is a recognition of what's happened. This is being called the most fatal mass shooting in American history. And as the numbers and the information are still coming out, but it's our responsibility that as we talk about the context of living the art of enjoyment and exploring the art of enjoyment, of looking at what's happening in the world and saying, how do I do this? How do I apply the art of enjoyment into this specific area? And generally, what happens when a mass shooting or something like this happens, we identify that this is, in this country, a first world problem. We talk about first world problems sometimes in a light way of, I went to the bathroom and I forgot my phone, hashtag first world problems. But, in reality, that mass shootings are currently a first world problem here. And whenever this happens, we look at ourselves and think, what can I do? How do I appreciate the art of enjoyment? How do I look at something like this and see good in it? So I want to invite you to see the good in it. I'm going to bring in the good stuff because that's what I'm here for. So as we're celebrating Pride Month, I want to reflect on the fact that the LGBT community has come so far. When we think of Stonewall, which was a riot back in 1969 where a bar was raided and gay people were just shipped off to jail, Stonewall Inn has become a monument at this point. It's a tourist destination to say, look at this moment in history. And now we get to be in a moment of history where we've got hashtag love wins. This talk is clearly all about hashtags right now. That gay marriage is new and it's scary for a lot of people. And the transition of this is going to be tough. But everyone here has committed to our mission statement. Let me remind you of our mission statement. Those of you who know it, say it with me. Love only, forgive everything, remember who you are. And our vision statement, which is do it now. So doing it now means that we do it always in the face of the most fatal mass shooting in our country, that we love only, forgive everything, and remember who we are. And it's challenging to forgive something like that. When these sorts of things come up, forgiveness can be challenging. But we also need to remember that being in this first world country, that shootings are a pretty consistent way of life. In Chicago on Memorial Day weekend, over 60 people were killed and 60 people were shot and 6 of them were fatally wounded. This sort of thing is happening all the time. And being love only, forgiving everything, means that we get to look at everything in front of us and speak up and speak out for it. As Ernest Holmes said, we have the opportunity to choose to be for something and against nothing. So choosing not to be against nothing doesn't mean that we don't speak out for reform and that we don't speak out for love and that we don't choose to use hashtags like love wins and stand up and say that we get to choose forgiveness now, even though it's challenging. And the art of enjoyment really means that we take full advantage of the fact that things are constantly happening in our lives, constantly happening in the world, that we get an opportunity to express love and forgiveness in an even bigger and broader way than ever before. At last week's meditation, David Allen Cruz said, "Joy is God in action. To enjoy means to bring joy in." And in the way that we define God as greatness on demand, consciousness on demand, essentially what God is love. And we have the opportunity to bring joy into any situation. We have the opportunity to choose joy even when it's challenging, to remember to do that. Karen Mitchell's song, Reverend Karen Mitchell's song, says, "It's a new day. What I was taught was not the only way." The way that we grew up in looking at tragedy and choosing to be sympathetic doesn't have to be the way that we live our lives anymore. We get to give, whether it's blood or money. People are looking for blood, so I mean, donate blood. But money, whatever it is, we get to give love and insert love, but we don't have to live in these old archaic ways of the past of saying, I have to choose tragedy, I have to choose sympathy. We have the opportunity to choose love at all times. Also in the song, she said, I can spend my life living in the past. I can spend my life wishing this would last. Right now, we have the opportunity to choose love, always. And so this happened, and it was unfortunate. But right now, we get to move forward from a place of love, from a place of recognition, from a place of speaking out. I can wait around for life to unfold, or I can do something free and bold. Now, I'm not going to tell you what that free and bold thing is for you, but you can. You can choose to do something free and bold. You can speak up. You can be a voice for love. You can take this moment into your loving arms, as Reverend Karen Mitchell said, and choose a new thought. I'm quoting all of our reverends from our newly installed reverends today. This one comes specifically from Facebook. Reverend Aaron Haskell said, "Life transforms the moment you realize it's unfolding perfectly." So, getting back to the first world thing again, the original hashtag first world problems, that it's no coincidence that Reverend James asked me to speak about what I spoke about before with first world problems, seeing as he's in the third world right now. As Reverend Dr. Ellen Contente mentioned earlier, she talked about the inconvenience of not having a radio in her car. There are so many opportunities for us to have joy in our lives for the luxuries that we are currently experiencing. If we have cars, the fact that radios even come in cars. Reverend James Mellon is in a country where clean water is considered a luxury. It's not necessarily plentiful. He's helping rebuild a center where orphans stay. Some of us have families, but we have warm places to live. We have food to eat. When you live in Los Angeles, you've got amazing weather around you at all times. And so there's really no reason for us to spend time dwelling on things like traffic. And there was this woman, I went to Ralph's directly after church last week, and the Ralph's right down the street on Magnolia. And this woman walked up to me, and she said, "What do you do when you ask somebody for help, and then they can't help you, and you don't know what to do?" And I thought, because Reverend James talked about me being a minister, I thought she just came from here, and she was asking me this because she knew I was a minister and knew me for some reason. But she didn't know me at all. She basically was aggravated by the fact that she wanted pineapples, and these pineapples were cut up, and she wanted a whole pineapple. So I found the pineapples, and I said, "The pineapples are right here." And she said, "Oh, I didn't want those either." So the answer to her question of what do you do, I said, have gratitude for the fact that you live in a city where you have access to a supermarket, where any form of pineapple that you want. Right? Like, they're canned, you can get it in juice, it's whole, they cut it for you. Like, and she said, "Nah, that's not it," and walked away from me. So I assume she didn't ask me that because she was here first. I do not think she came from here and went to Ralph's in a bad mood. But we have this opportunity to be that lady. We could be upset about whatever random thing comes across our desk, or we can choose to recognize that there is an opportunity for gratitude all the time. How many times do you take a shower and have gratitude for the fact that you have hot water? If you don't have hot water, you especially have gratitude when you don't. That day that happens, the next day it's like, thank God the water is hot. But this is a privilege that we take for granted on a daily basis. Every time that we have a glass of water, there's no thought. I mean, we talk about the drought, but do we actually do anything? We do things like not water our lawns as much. Like, it hasn't really affected our way of life. They say things like take shorter showers, but I honestly don't think anybody's really doing that. I'm still using my dishwasher as much as I need to. And that's the other thing that we were talking about before is Reverend James Mellon, everybody's a doctor this week. Dr. Reverend James Mellon last week talked about how there's joy in the dishes. And personally, I have joy in the fact that I have a dishwasher, and I'm never living anywhere without a dishwasher if I can help it. But I take for granted every time I load the dishwasher. My wife and I will say, who's gonna do the dishes? Even though all we have to do is put them in the dishwasher. And when I was a kid, I did not have a dishwasher growing up, and I would hear kids argue about unloading and loading the dishwasher, and I would say, what is wrong with these kids? They don't have to do the dishes. What is their problem? But now that I'm in the similar luxury, I am procrastinating myself about emptying them, but I never really think about, as I do the dishes, not only how amazing it is that I have a dishwasher, but also that I have all of the water that I need to do my dishes. I do not wash dishes in a river. I don't wash clothes in a river. And I don't know if that's specifically what Reverend James is doing in Guatemala. I didn't go last year. But, I really want to give credit for somebody who chooses to step out of the luxury of, and I know he's got fancy sheets and pillows and such, stepping out of those things and really immersing himself in the jungle and giving back. And, what we have in relationship to the art of enjoyment is the opportunity to have joy in all of these things, in all of these little luxuries that we take for granted. Those of you who got here with a car this morning, if you were able didn't have to think about the gas money to get here, or didn't have to think about whether your car was gonna make it, you're living a really prosperous life. If you're going out to lunch today, you are living a very prosperous life. And we have this opportunity to practice the art of enjoyment at all times. I love that I have my thoughts become things, so choose the good ones cup, because that's what I'm saying, is choose the good thoughts. So there's this video. Everything I swear that I'm ever going to talk about is going to come from Facebook, so just keep that in mind. There's a video about the hashtag first world problems, where they have people from the third world talking about basically reading the hashtag and living their lives. And so there's one where there's this man in a shack, super small, made out of mud and sticks, kind of like a Three Little Pigs kind of house. And I know, if I was offensive, I apologize. But anyway, so this man is standing in front of this house, and he says, I hate it when my house is so big that I need 2 wireless routers. And then there's a little girl standing by a river, and there's all these women washing their clothes in the river, like I mentioned before. And she says, I hate when I leave my clothes in the washer for so long that they start to smell. And then there's this little kid who's in this empty house. It's just rocks. There's no furniture, no nothing, just concrete. And he says, I hate when I have to write the maid a check and I forgot her last name. And so the whole point of this video is to really remind us that there are people who are living in certain countries who don't have the luxuries that we take advantage every day. The clean water, the washing machines. And even if you don't have a washing machine, you have access to a laundromat. You have access to a bank with some quarters. None of us are washing our clothes in a river. And honestly, I have a tremendous amount of respect for that, and gratitude for that, even though I don't think that every time I do laundry, even though I am the biggest procrastinator of doing laundry. And so this week, as I've been looking at what it means to have gratitude for all of the first world benefits that I've got going on, and I should note, specifically when I chose the talk title, First World Problems, I thought, I don't really want to have a negative talk title. I don't want to have something be about problems. But the reason I chose it anyway is because our first world problems are not problems. And I am so grateful for the fact that my first world problems are not real problems. This whole thing started when I was choosing a talk title for my ministerial panel. And originally, I wanted to talk about faith. I was looking for a new apartment, and I was having the hardest time. I was finding all kinds of amazing apartments, but they would already be taken by the time that I was ready to, actually, when I applied, I'd apply, and they say, too late, you're too late. Doesn't matter if I was the first one there. There was this one apartment. Ronnie and I came right on time, and we ran home and sent that application as quickly as possible, and somebody brought their stuff, brought their check stubs and copies of their driver's license and everything to the open house, so they managed to beat us to the punch. And so I wanted to talk about faith, and I wanted to trust that I'd have the perfect apartment available. And as it was coming time for my ministerial panel, about 5 days beforehand, I didn't have an apartment. And so how am I going to use this story of I had faith in myself and I got an amazing apartment when I don't have an apartment? So I was getting a mani-pedi, getting ready for my ministerial panel, and thinking about the fact that I was getting a mani-pedi right now. And realized that in the general scheme of things, in regards to my issue with my apartment, there's nothing actually wrong with my apartment. In fact, the reason that I've had such a hard time finding one is because my apartment is amazing. We've got a pool, a gym, a hot tub, 2 balconies. One of our balconies is big enough for a porch swing. And so as I'm looking for another apartment in a different side of town, they don't have porches big enough for my swing. Or I want 2 bathrooms, because if I'm going to move, I should get 2 bathrooms instead of 1 bathroom. So I had all of these requirements that I was looking for in a new place, in the perfect neighborhood, needing to have this and that. And you know I'm not moving anywhere without a dishwasher, because I already said that. So I had all of these requirements. And then once I realized that I was really embedding myself in my first world problem, I decided to make a new choice. I just had to pick something. And so I found the thing about looking for apartments in Los Angeles, let this just be a word of advice. If you want an apartment today, you can have one. You can walk in anywhere and say, here's my stuff, I want an apartment. That's how we moved to LA. Is I said, hey, I just moved here, can I have an apartment? And they said, sign your name. But if you want an apartment 2 weeks from now, that's just not going to happen, because somebody else wants it today. And so you have to take it today, or you just don't get an apartment. And so I figured that out, basically, specifically in the areas that I was looking in. And I came across this great apartment in West Hollywood, had washer-dryer hookups. I don't have washer-dryer hookups. I'm going to have lots of gratitude for that laundry and that water. Came with a dishwasher, of course, comes with the extra bathroom, but it's right in the middle of West Hollywood, which is, I live near LAX, and so just being able to be close to you guys, in fact, I blame you guys for me wanting to move closer, because you guys are all so great. And no one wants to ever come visit me, because I'm the acrossest of town that there is. And so I made that decision. I know I can't blame you. I've got to take responsibility. We live in a law of cause and effect, and I caused myself to live in an apartment across town and caused myself to stress out about picking a new one. But I picked a new one. And the worst part about this is I was still it really does just get worse. So this week I was on vacation. I picked my apartment, paid my deposit, got on a plane. And so on vacation, I'm thinking, do I really want this apartment after I've been deliberating for so long? And I was sitting in first class, deliberating about whether I had made the right choice. And then somebody came and served me my glass of Merlot, and I thought, this Merlot's chilled. It's supposed to be served room temperature. And then I remembered why my mother-in-law compares my wife and I to Niles and Fraser Crane. So I was just really steeped in recognition of how I really involve myself in my first world problems. And so as part of my stepping into the art of enjoyment, I am changing my relationship to these things. I am going to enjoy my new apartment in West Hollywood. I will have gratitude for having a dishwasher. And those of you who don't have dishwashers, have gratitude for the fact that you have easy water to access your dishes and don't have to wash them in a river. I will have gratitude for the fact that I've got access to water and food and really anything I could ever desire. A car that works with a radio that works. And And I invite you in your experience of exploring the art of enjoyment to recognize those opportunities to have appreciation for those first world luxuries, for your bed, for temperature control, a fan, central air, whatever it is that you've got, the opportunity to roll a window down in a car and drive fast, whatever it is that you've got going on, I encourage you to really take this time, take this month to really have gratitude for everything. Explore your art of enjoyment even further. Namaste.